welcome out to the blue corner, Aguirre.
Fighting out of Oswego, Illinois. Now, I'm really interested in this fight to see what Aguirre had a very good record going into the UFC. He was 7-0. He lost his first 2 fights in the UFC and lost his contract, but he had 7 finishes.
Okay.
And then he fought 2 really, really good fighters. Lost a decision in one, was finished in another, but I mean, he's fighting at the highest level, tested himself there.
Yeah.
As someone who had that same path, you know, I went 6-1 before going to the UFC, and I went 0-3 and lost my contract. You know, it's just that is the highest level of fighting. Those guys are just really good. That just makes this even more interesting, right? To see if he is still a level above everyone else, and if it was just maybe those matchups, you know, which is the case for a lot of guys. They really do deserve to be there, but matchups are matchups, and sometimes it just don't go your way.
And, you know, I don't know the context for those matchups. I mean, maybe they were short notice fights, who knows, you know? Is he gonna come back with a vengeance? Is he gonna really, like, use that to fuel his fire, like move himself back up and try and steamroll over some people and get back to the UFC?
Right.
I would imagine at 28 years old, he wants to get back there, right?
I would assume so.
I do believe his first fight was on short notice. It was right after his local win. I think it was like Hammond, Indiana. He fought for Anthony Pettis' show.
Okay.
Got a very impressive win there, and then ended up getting an opportunity after that. He does train at the famed Valley Flow Striking. The head coach is in Manchester. You know, the head coach of Bilal Muhammad, who's competing for the UFC welterweight title tonight. So
it's a great gym to be at.
That's a great gym. They are up and coming in the Midwest.
He's definitely a strong pressure fighter. Wrestling heavy, very wrestling heavy, wrestled in college. Rocking the UFC shorts.
Yeah.
Maybe that's some kind of statement, like, hey, I've been here, this is where I'm at, you're not on my level.
The red corner, please welcome Frank.
Very intense fight. Frank Osborne, local to Marshalltown, definitely going to be the crowd favorite here. Long time MMA practitioner, you know, going back 16, 17 years. I had the privilege of training with Frank up in Wisconsin at Rufus Sport. He's been in it for a long time. I'm interested to see how this matchup plays out.
How would you describe Frank's style?
Frank is a very fleet-footed striker, if I had to say. Very light on his feet, very movement-based. Throws with ill intent, but also normally pushes a high pace. I don't know how that will play out today, especially with the aggressive style of Nick, who wants to wrestle. I think you'll see Frank probably play around the edge of the cage and look to use his footwork to get in and out of danger while landing strikes on his own.
And with this relatively smaller cage, it might lead into the favor of Aguirre.
Frank did say before the fight, just in passing, that he had a Grandview, a new wrestler from Grandview University training with him recently. He's been putting a lot of focus on wrestling because he knew the caliber of wrestling his opponent had. So we're just going to see how that plays out. You know, whose will is going to be placed on the other person, and who can ultimately dictate where this fight takes place. I think will kind of decide who wins.
Yeah. And speaking of Marshalltown and Marshalltown greats, he's got Rick Glenn in his corner, current UFC fighter.
Got the Gladiator.
He'll be fighting next year or next month out in Melbourne, Australia, or Perth, Australia.
Rick said one more fight, he's riding off into the sun. I'm excited for him to have that. At the same time, Ricky Glenn, the Gladiator. And Rick was obviously one of the originators here in Iowa. Him and Frank go all the way back. They've been training together since that time, 16, 17 years in the sport. Rick is a WSOF world champion, fought for a whole bunch of major organizations. He's fought all over the world. So it's a privilege for Frank to have him in the corner.
Absolutely.
I know
And
he's
this bout
pulled
is
from
also
that
a
experience.
pro bout.
Yeah.
3 5-minute rounds. Fighting first out of the blue corner, he is a grappler, representing Valley Flow Striking, standing 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighing at 145 pounds, carrying a professional MMA record of 7 wins and 2 losses. Representing Oswego, Illinois, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Slick Nick Aguirre! His opponent fighting out of the red corner is a mixed martial artist, standing 5 feet 8 inches tall, and also weighing at 145 pounds, carrying a professional MMA record of 6 wins and 4 losses. Fighting out of Marshalltown, Iowa. Give it up for Nasty Frank Osborne!
It is now time for the main event of the evening.
I have a feeling this one's going to start out pretty fast.
Yeah, I agree. They're both a little amped.
I don't think we will have a lack of entertainment in this fight. Been getting a lot of them tonight. We have another standard versus southpaw here. We're going to see another battle of that lead foot.
And I was just going to mention, but Frank is making sure to stay outside that lead foot to create those angles.
I believe that's a testament to training with Ricky Glenn, who is one of the best left-handed fighters to come out of the area in his main training partner.
Foot on the outside. That two will be there.
It looks like Nick's just a little bit longer in the arms and legs to give him a little bit of range for his striking.
Nice right hand
Nice right
landed by
hand.
Frank.
Yep.
Be interested to see how soon Aguirre gets into his wrestling.
I think if Frankie continues to pressure in this manner, Nick is going to have no choice but to level change and try to at least give him something to think about, right?
Yeah, I agree.
He's waiting for you to back up to throw that kick. Nice, Frankie.
It's a beautiful counter check hook there.
Every time. Up, nothing. Foot on the outside. Watch the level changes. Yep, good. Chin down. Keep that right hand
Osborne
sharp.
seems to have very precise striking so far. He's been hitting the mark pretty well.
He's doing a good job. He's not following behind him. He's kind of cutting him off there, allowing him to move, but to still contain that angle of being on the outside of that lead leg.
Looking good, Frankie. Let's get a little bounce here. Get a little bounce here. Nothing. Get that foot on the outside. Get that foot on the outside. He's there. Right hand sharp.
You know, Nick's thrown that lead
Right hand a little higher.
deep to the leg a couple of times. I'd like to see him follow it up with something if he's going to stop Frank with it, you know.
Circle hard. Good. Let's get that center back. Nice, Frankie. Looking great.
That's a very nice
right
cross.
hand. Caught him coming in there.
Yep.
Foot on the outside.
Frankie just seems to be the more comfortable fighter at this range currently on their feet.
Show that jab a little more.
I don't think I've seen Nick. Oh, there goes the first jab.
Yeah.
I think he really threw.
Cross is there every time he throws something. Yep. Let's go, Frankie!
I'm wondering if Aguirre is trying to prove something to himself by standing in striker instead of
Maybe,
wrestling.
yeah.
All I've seen of him previously, very wrestling heavy game plan.
Show the takedown.
I think also sometimes when you've been at that higher level and you come back down to these local shows, sometimes you have a hard time getting yourself up for the performance you think you should have. And Frankie is not shying away from putting the pressure on him.
Nice
That's a
jab,
really
nice
interesting
jab.
point.
Yeah.
Throw it again. Closer to the cage, the overhand's there. Angle, angle.
You know, I'd like to see Nick pick up the pace a little bit on any
Circle,
striking or wrestling or anything, right? Just to try a few things. He seems a little tentative, although throws it at me right after that. Never mind.
Hey, correct angle.
We've been Nostradamus a couple times in this.
Frankie's doing a really good job of only putting enough on his strikes. He's not,
he's not
overexerting himself or extending, right? He's throwing short, sharp shots, and he's got to watch his head be in that position. Nick is throwing a couple different knees, and there goes that first takedown. His hands are locked.
He's got his hands locked. This is bad. Bad news. Frank giving up his back right away.
He's going to have to
Probably
watch
not
that.
the best decision. He's doing a decent job hand fighting so far. This is Aguirre's wheelhouse, though.
Yeah.
He's got the body triangle. He's looking to trap an arm already.
He's got a whole minute to work.
This is bad news. He's under the chin already. This is tight. This is tight. This is
This
it.
is a bad
It's a very
position
tight
for
choke.
Frank. It's
It's
in really,
over.
really tight. His arm is
And I think his
trapped.
other arm is trapped.
I don't think Frankie's
That's
going to.
it.
Oh, there it is. There goes the tap. Ended up being the one takedown that he needed to
That's
shoot.
all he
He was
needed,
able
yeah.
to get it done.
And maybe that's what he was waiting for. Maybe he was just being patient,
Yeah.
right? Find the timing he needed.
Quick finish after that, too.
Yeah.
If I could land in, I'm dead wrong. Fighting off this hunger for hours. Big step, but nigga don't get stepped on. My money in my favor, respect on. Still gonna be me when success gone. I don't speak the language of cowards. I walk through the flame like I'm Teflon.
Good sign of respect there. I think he was just obviously going through a round of adversity. It wasn't going his way, you know.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he did what he needed to do to get the finish, and a lot of respect being shown here between these two warriors.
I mean, Osborne was honestly taking advantage of the stand-up. He was doing a great job, but man, once it got to the ground, it was kind of outclassed.
And once again, sometimes, you know, there's just a tactical level when you're at that high level, you know, and one mistake and
Your winner,
that's all she wrote.
All it takes.
4 minutes and 22 seconds in round number 1 by way of the rear naked choke. Give it up for Slick Nick Aguirre.